On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors.
Well, this week finds the Western Ag Network crew back out on the road. Russell Nimitz and I here in beautiful Sheridan, Wyoming. A lot of cattle sold this week on the Superior Livestock video auction, over 220,000 in fact. And Russ, the markets continue to be higher, as our good friend Evan Slack always put it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has just been a phenomenal summer video sales season, and of course, all summer long in each of Superior's summer video sales, it's just been getting better and better.
Yeah, it has, and it was great coming down here, catching up with producers from across Western Ag Network country. We talked to a lot of our good friends that help represent those cattle, and it was just great seeing people with smiles on their faces.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were actually able to catch up with one of Superior Livestock Auction's well-known representatives who calls Texas his home.
Well, Sheridan, Wyoming played host to a very big cattle sale this week as Superior Livestock Auction hosted its Big Horn Classic here at the fairgrounds. And I tell you what, producers are in a lot better mood than they have been in the past few years as they're seeing these cattle prices continue to be much better as that U.S. cattle herd continues to be on that lower end of things. And today finds us with our good friend, Mr. Clint Berry. He is well known out across the countryside as one of the greatest in the game of being a livestock rep for Superior Livestock Auction. But Clint, I know you call Texas home, but
Yes,
you market a lot of cattle in 17 states, I believe.
Yes, sir.
What's it been like? Producers have smiles on their
Yeah.
faces. It really helps the attitude out, especially all the drought we've been through. I guess, what does that feel like here this summer?
And you touched on it in your opening statement there when we started this deal, but a good mood, a positive feeling, optimism. The leverage has switched to the producer side, and what's exciting, we don't get very many years like this in the cattle industry, and we gotta, we have a lot of years where we have to be resilient and we have to suffer through things and do the best we can, and we all know that. That's what part of farming and ranching is all about. This is one of those years that it is nice to take a deep breath and step back and enjoy a little bit and remember, that there are good times too when we have to suffer through the bad. And I've encouraged all of my sellers throughout the year, don't miss that. Take some time to enjoy the good times, because this is one of those years, because it's not very often that in the marketplace both the buyers and the sellers are both happy and both of them are optimistic, but that's where we find ourselves this year. Been marketing calves for a long time, not nearly as long as some others, but for a long enough that I'm sure not a greenhorn. But I'll tell you, I've never seen a year quite like this. We're selling cattle for more money than we ever have, and that includes prices back in 13 and 14 at the last boom, and I think our long-term future looks a lot better going forward.
That is one area I want to touch on, because obviously we saw those prices there after that 2012 drought, and I mean,
Yep.
we were seeing those prices, and then when those prices kind of took a nosedive, it was
Yeah.
hard to sit in these video auctions.
And it was fast.
And folks, that demeanor changed, and but of course the weather factors were a little bit different back
Yep,
then.
that's right.
And cattle producers know how to rebuild a herd when the conditions are right, and those conditions got pretty in line with the stars. Stars got in line for that herd to grow pretty fast.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that's going to happen this year, or do you think we're going to, in the next few years, or with that drought really impacting the Midwest? Do you think it could be a few more years before we really start to see that the rebuilding of the U.S. herd?
I do. I believe this will be a longer cycle, and part of that reason is, we come out of 12 with 11 a historic drought, and then 12 expanded it to 3/4 of the country and made it even worse. But then things turned, and 13 and 14 was a complete boom. And then by 15, we had turned that corner and was going back the other way. And this time around, like as we go into this market, if you watch on the videos as we're selling cattle this week and throughout the summer, not just ours, but as you watch how these soon-to-be fall delivery cattle that we're selling in the summer, you can tell there's not a lot of pressure on the heifer calves. When you're still seeing heifers sell back into the feeder value that they are at $10 or $20 back a steer price, that's a good indication there's no outside pressure for replacement females. And there are exceptions to that rule in some of these cattle that we sell, but in general, you can tell that there's no pressure there. It'll be interesting to see this fall what that market looks like on bred stock.
Yeah.
You know, I think all of us believe that with the calf prices that we're selling, when the producers actually start getting checks in their pocket and they pay their operating loans off and do the things they need to at home to make their wife happy again, and you know, we are probably going to turn around and these ranchers, you know, the men and women out there that are working are going to look to rebuild or replenish or restock, and you know, whether that's an expansion or just getting them back to whole, I don't know, but I think you're going to start seeing that turn as we move into the fall. But so far, we're not seeing the pressure on the open heifers, and so that tells me we're another year out, and that's good news for everybody that's in and the cattle that we have right now.
And what has maybe been some of those conversations with producers? Obviously, we've had a lot of drought. I mean,
Yeah.
And the prices are reflecting that this year.
Right.
And it was tough when folks were selling their herds, and especially up in Montana, the
That's right.
Dakotas, Wyoming, and where you had to sell because there was no grass. I guess what's that conversation been like with some of your partners out in the countryside looking to market those steers and those heifer calves? Where some saying, you know what, we may hold back more of those heifer calves this year, or is it just too enticing to try to pay off those input cost notes?
And that's exactly, in my opinion, that's exactly what it is. You know, there's a lot of cattlemen and women out there that are getting whole this year, and that's not a new thing. I mean, traditionally speaking, that we all understand that. We all have to operate a business on top of our livelihoods. And so to be able to replenish what was probably all-time historic operating loans with all-time, you know, historic prices of cattle, I mean, we're gonna square up on some of that before we start down the other side, and it's just expected to be that way. But that's what you're running into, you know, is exactly that.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what those bred females bring this fall.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've talked to folks all week at the different events I've been at. Some are saying above 3, just over 3,000 for those bred cows. We're going to wait and see. I don't have that magic 8 ball.
I don't either.
But you know, one thing about it though is producers are happy. Prices are good, especially for those really high-end, fancy
yes.
cattle. But also, wean calves this year really are bringing a good premium
Right.
with these sales.
Well, you know, and a lot of times guys ask that. If you look at our data at Superior, and I'm just going to speak about our internal stuff, but you know, you look at 2 decades worth of data that we show, weaning calves pays every year. Now, does that mean that for your operation that you should always wean cattle? No. We all have a different factor there, whether it's labor or forage availability or timeliness, or, I mean, some guys wean cattle and do a great job of it. Some guys wean cattle and they'll even admit they do a terrible job of it, you know. And other guys just don't have the ability, the forage, whether it's forage base or facilities or labor, to do that. So it's got to work in your own outfit. But in general, a wean calf is always going to bring a little more, and it's always because it is a risk versus liability type factor. And so when you can take, especially when the cattle prices are higher, or especially when they're program calves, they have less fallout. In general, mathematically, they have less fallout. And you know, when you're paying $1,300 for a calf, you don't want any deads. But when you're paying $1,800 for a calf, you sure don't want any deads. You know, it's the same factor. But and you mentioned the programs. You know, when you're starting talking about being in naturals and stuff like that, no antibiotic use can be done. Every time you have a pool of fallout, that calf's out of the program, and that delves in deep. And on those program cattle, those wean cattle, and those yearlings really make a big difference.
Now, we all like making money, and everybody hopefully is making money in the business here this year. But, you know, when that market maybe does correct and that herd grows and the prices aren't as high for the cow-calf producer, you know, having good calves really pays off in the end.
Right.
When we're not seeing these historic highs that everybody with different quality of calf crops are. I guess, what do you stress to, again, your partners out in the country about just having good calves, looking at good genetics, and having that higher end, so you're getting the best of the prices out there, even when we're not seeing these record high prices?
Yes, sir. So high market, low market, $1 calves, $4 calves. In my opinion, this holds true all the time. Don't let the tail wag the dog. We get really caught up in the side notes, and we talked about programs and stuff, and those are vital. They add a lot of value to those cattle, and they can fit right in your operation and not require you to change much for certain producers, and others have to make a tremendous change. But let's don't complicate the matter. All the value starts with good genetics and solid herd health. You can't take advantage of the upside of that if you don't have the foundation set in place. And so in a good year or a bad year, good genetics and good health are always going to play the key role. And if you square them up, then you're always going to be competitive in the market, and there will always be a buyer want to come back and look for those calves regardless. Then you can start talking about the things that put the extra gravy on the plate.
Well, I did hear that there's going to be a motorcycle rally here in just a little bit with you and Bob Moore getting your hogs out. But again, Clint, just any last just words, thoughts, joke, whatever you want to share with our audience here today on the Western Ag Network.
You know, I just want to say congratulations to the producers out there, buyers and sellers both. It's such a refreshing feeling in agriculture right now, and so much optimism. And we just want to thank all our customers at Superior for marking their cattle with us, and our buyers for being here and being competitive and bidding on these calves. And hey, you know, let's keep an eye on that live cattle market, because that's where we need that money to really be trickling down to. We start getting $2 calves on all contracts, and all of us are going to make a little money. That really comes back to the ranch fast.
Well, again, Clint Berry joining us here today, Superior Livestock representative. He calls Texas home. Again, a lot of happy producers here this summer. We'll continue to have more of our conversations from out on the road and talking about these pretty impressive cattle prices along the way. Okay.
Ready for a real PRF partner?
He was willing to track us for a year and provide that data back to us for a year. That's a guy making a pretty big investment.
At Ag Risk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At Ag Risk Advisors, we earn them.
Now, Lane, as we mentioned, this week here in Sheridan, Wyoming alone, over 200,000 head of cattle have sold both on the immediate yearling type market and the fall delivered calves. And of course, a big portion of those 200,000 head were right here from Western Ag Network country. How'd they sell this week?
You know, looking at those Region 2 cattle, which encompasses almost all of Western Ag Network country, we're looking at those 5.5 to 6 weight steers. They were bringing prices anywhere from $274 to $318, 6 to 640 weights, $655 to $302, and a little heavier, $760 to $785, $243 to $260. On the heifer end of things, we are seeing that gap come together just a little bit. 5.5 to 6 weights, $254 to $322, with the 615 to 640s, 231 to 269. So a lot of good prices again here this year. Man. And a lot of insight from, of course, our friend Clint Berry, talking more about kind of what that bred market might look like this fall. So we'll see how that goes. But, you know, a man that is synonymous with the name Superior Livestock Auction is, of course, world champion livestock auctioneer Ralph Wade. Russell caught up with the icon of the auctioneering industry in the livestock sector here in Sheridan.
Well, it's been another busy week for our friends at Superior Livestock Auction, as this week they've sold over 200,000 head of cattle here in beautiful Sheridan, Wyoming, all part of their annual Bighorn Sale Classic. And of course, joining us right now is world champion livestock auctioneer Ralph Wade from Sulphur, Oklahoma. And Ralph, as we talk about this week's cattle market here on the foothills of the beautiful Bighorn Mountains, I mean, you've been doing this now since you were 12 years old. So you've sold a lot of cattle over your storied career. Have you ever seen a cattle market as red hot as this one?
No, sir, I haven't. No, it's been unreal. I mean, and you know, everybody looks back to 2014, 15 when we had the run up there in the market, and then of course due to the packing house fire and some of those things that went on at that time, where we saw the market deteriorate, and then we come back this year and just I mean, with a phenomenal market, prices that we are exceeding what we did back in 2014 on about all classes of cattle. So it's been a great time.
How long have you been riding for the brand for Superior Livestock Auction?
Well, Superior Livestock actually started in January at the National Western Stock Show in '87, and in '87, along about October, November. And I don't really remember the date exactly, but Jim Odell gave me a call. He was the trail boss of Superior at that time, and actually it was his idea, and him and Buddy Jeffers, and they gave me a call and asked me if I would be interested, and I went down to Fort Worth and interviewed with them and got up and sold, and from that time on it's been history, and it's been a great ride.
Where have some of your other stops been along your storied auctioneer career? Because we talked about Superior, and we're doing this program here in Sheridan, Wyoming, but you've sold cattle and livestock all over the high plains, haven't you?
Well, even further further away than that. I actually started out in Mexico, Missouri, under the direction of a guy by the name of Ed Buckner, who was the first world champion livestock auctioneer. Won it back in 1962, and I pretty much what you would say, I guess, trained under Eddie. And he was, as I say, a world champion, a great auctioneer. And at Mexico, Missouri, at that time, it was actually way ahead of its time. It was the first ring scales. It was the first digital scales. I mean, a lot of the things that went on later on in the livestock marketing industry. And I sold there. I was there for about 9 years, and then I left and came to Colorado. And in Colorado, I started out there, met Bob Walker, and was at Brush, Colorado, and I sold at Brush, Colorado, and then I worked markets all over those areas. In 1990, I got a phone call from Oklahoma National Stockyards, which is the world's largest actual head count, where they bring them right through the ring. And they called me and wanted to know if I'd be interested. Again, I flew down there and interviewed with them, and started selling for Oklahoma National Stockyards, and I was there for 17 years. And but during that time, in '87, I started selling. Of course, I already was selling for Superior at that time, and I've sold purebred sales. I worked for TV for Five Star Pictures at one time. I sold a lot of their stuff at auction. And I've had a great career at it.
It sounds.
I've sold white rhinos and elephants and exotic animals. When the big exotic deal came around, I had the opportunity to work in that. And in fact, Jim Odell and I got in the ostrich business at one time. We were selling ostriches, so it's been a great career.
It sounds like it's been flat amazing. Speaking of amazing, I mean, this part of the world, in your travels over your career, you're no stranger to Montana and Wyoming, and you were telling us before we started this interview, you used to run with a renegade named Chris Brookman. He's still part of the Superior family too.
Oh yeah, Chris and I are great friends. We did. We covered a lot of ground. There was a lot of our tracks up there around the country, and we were up in Malta, Montana, and all through that country, and buying cows. This was back during the 70s and the early 80s, well, all the way through the 80s. And actually, in early 80, we started a video in Wyoming. A guy by the name of Martin Sullivan, Ray Mader, who's with Superior today, Tony Schiffer, Chris Brookman, and I, started a video auction that we actually had one sale a year. We held it in Casper. We were in Cheyenne one time, I think, and but we had and then at that time in '87, when Jim Odell gave us a call, or gave me a call, we went down visiting with them, and at that time all of that group came together with Superior, and we brought our video with theirs and made a part of it. So a lot of the guys that are with Superior now, that are reps up through this country, were cut their teeth with us.
Absolutely. Maybe just talk about how video has revolutionized how we market cattle here in the 21st century, and how hard or the dream back in the 80s, because it wasn't as easy to do what we're doing here today, even doing this interview in the 80s as it is here in the 21st century.
Well, you're exactly right, because I remember so well that, even when we were having, that one sale a year, and that's the way actually Jim and Superior, it wasn't Superior at that time, it was Odell video auction at that time, but it's the way it started, and people were I mean, they were reluctant, you know, they didn't understand it, but at that time it was once a year and everybody had to come to the auction. It didn't go up on satellite, you know, there were, in fact, our first one, we had still pictures, we didn't even have video. So, and then in '87, when they came up with the idea and it went up on that, you know, the big old dish,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
they had, and it started out, yeah, you know, with that, it was, you know, it was a great thing. A lot of people, I mean, everybody was very skeptical. I mean, this won't work. I mean, you can't do this, you know, but I'm gonna tell you, and you know, and I will have to say too, I was a little skeptical of it, you know, when it first started, but it caught fire, and it's been one of the greatest marketing tools for the industry, and to work with this industry and have the opportunity, as we do, to have over 6,000 buyer base all over the United States, over 430 reps that are all over the country, and it's just been such a great marketing tool to be able to offer these cattle to them over the video, and has been so successful, and you know, remains as probably, I think, one of the greatest things, and because everybody looks back at Superior, what was the market, you know, we're the trendsetters, we're the market setters.
Absolutely. Talk about the transformation from ranchers getting on board with, you know, buying better genetics, you know, and getting involved with a program so we're not just selling commodity beef out there.
Well, and again, Superior was one of the first ones that we went to the university, and Jim and Buddy did, and they had them do the research as far as the vaccination protocol, and we interviewed with feedlots, talked to ranchers, talked to growers, and learned what it takes, you know, for them to produce a better product for them to go on with, and that was one of the first steps that Superior did. And then as the NHTC and GAP and all the programs came along, that the consumer, I mean, you know, the whole thing comes back to the consumer. You know, you got to produce a product that they're gonna that they like, a product that they trust, and with that, being able to have the vaccination protocol, and then the GAP programs, and how their cattle are handled, and they feel, you know, they're happy with the buying cattle that are not hot, you know, no hot shots used on them, and I mean, it's made a big imprint, you know, in the livestock business and in the industry as a whole. So, you know, Superior has been, you know, so much of a team leader, and living out on the edge, on, you might say, even on some of it, and it's been great. And as you talk about the genetic programs, and we've had the opportunity to work so closely with our seed stock producers, and we have a lot of them now, and of course with Superior Production, that we uplink and produce their sales, you know, their purebred sales, and put them up on, you know, on Superior, and work with them, with our customers. I mean, it's just all linked together. It's just, I guess you'd call it a perfect storm that has come together in producing a product that the consumer wants.
Last question, Ralph. I mean, what's your advice for ranchers when it comes to marketing their cattle? You know, either at an actual auction market or on a video, per se, Superior Livestock.
Well, yeah, you know, there's always going to, I feel like, I mean, I cut my teeth in the, you know, in the livestock market, down there in the ring, and the and the poop and the whole deal, you know. Started out cleaning alleys and doing the whole deal. That's not going to go away. I mean, there's always going to be that market out here, because, you know, to start with, we produce, what we sell has to be, or pretty much has to be, in load lots, and it's not going to go away from that. And there's so many smaller ranchers and smaller operations, and you know, a lot of guys that have different ideas about their breeding program and how they want to do. So yeah, you know, that's going to be there. But when you ask me, you know, what would my advice be to a rancher, I'm going to look at, you know, what is his program? You know, what are you into? Do you have 50 cows, you have 25, or have you got 500? And what are you doing in your program as far as your genetic base is concerned, as far as your protocol and vaccinations and health programs? And with that, then you can work with him and pull him together as to where he needs to be marketing his cattle. And you know, as I said, Superior and the video marketing method of selling cattle, and being able, the biggest thing is to being able to put them out there in front of this many buyers all over the country that would never have the opportunity to see these cattle and have the opportunity to buy them. Buy 1 truckload, 5 truckloads, or whatever it is, that they are those people out there, those buyers out there that you know, we can get them in front of and offer them to them. And if we can make them fit their genetic program as well as their vaccination protocol, it's just that much better for their marketing concept.
Ralph, I appreciate your time and for joining us here on the Western Ag Network.
You betcha. It's been great. It's been great.
Again, we've been visiting with Ralph Wade, world champion livestock auctioneer for Superior Livestock Auction from Sulphur, Oklahoma. For more information about Superior Livestock Auction and of course to check out their calendar and their auction schedule moving forward, you can just jump online and visit them at superiorlivestock.com.
Well, Russ, I tell you what, again, as we said, a lot of smiles on producers' faces this week, and just a little more certainty about maybe paying a little bit of the banknotes off and helping producers make a go of it here in Sheridan. And again, very successful video auction season for Superior Livestock and their reps and their customers out across the countryside.
You know, speaking of their reps, for more information about Superior and of course to find a representative in your area or even just to check out their upcoming auction schedule, which includes the big Labor Day sale, which is just around the corner, you can visit them online anytime at superiorlivestock.com.
You know, Russ, conversations like these that we have on Western Ag Network, whether that's the radio or TV programs or our digital products, we just encourage folks to always visit us online at westernagnetwork.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We're going to have more of these conversations from Sheridan and all the other top headlines on our upcoming Fence Lines and Headlines segment, which airs every Sunday morning at 7:05 a.m. And if you miss those shows, go back, check them out on our Facebook or YouTube channels because we like to have a little fun, relax a little bit, take the ties off from the TV studios like our usual broadcast.
Yeah,
but make sure and check us out there. And again, a great sale here in Sheridan once again for the Bighorn Classic sale for Superior Livestock Auction. So with that, friends, thanks for joining us. And on behalf of the entire Western Ag Network crew and Russell Nimitz, I'm Wayne Nordlund. We'll catch you next time.
On the Road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors.